FTX, one of the largest exchanges, is insolvent and has collapsed and is taking crypto down with it, or so it seems. The question is, can this FTX disaster bring down the stock market with it? Well, that's what we're going to get into today. So if you own stocks, you really want to stick around for this discussion because the implications of this may have more far-reaching effects than you might think, because this isn't just going to affect the crypto markets. That's my opinion, and that's what we're going to discuss today. Welcome back to Stop Being Sold. My name is Michelle, and I'm here with Brian. And Brian, I'd ask you how you're doing, but I know what's transpired this week has unnerved you a little bit, so to speak.
And not really unnerved, more frustrated.
Yeah.
Frustrated that this was allowed to happen at all.
Sure.
I've been following the trail of these events since it first hit Twitter over the weekend, Michelle. And at first it seemed more like billionaires trying to outdo each other, right?
Right. Yeah.
But now it seems like a greater issue that may lead to a breakdown of trust on this whole industry. So,
yeah. Well, so before we talk about the real reach of this FTX collapse, let's talk a little bit. Let's explain a little bit how it happened. I mean, there's a lot to it. So briefly, for people who may not quite be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, this whole thing started last week when Coindesk leaked out the FTX's balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed that Alameda Research, which is a trading firm funded by FTX owner Sam Bankman-Fried, and tied to FTX, held a stupid number of FTT tokens on its balance sheet, as well as other tokens. Michelle, FTT is the token issued by FTX.
Yeah.
So they had billions of dollars worth of assets. They weren't very liquid.
Nope.
Some may say or could argue a lot of these tokens weren't even valuable or maybe even worthless, right?
Yeah.
And so
I have a quick question for you. Can you talk a little bit, sorry to interrupt, but talk about how Binance is involved in all this. I know that they were an early investor, and then of course you mentioned the Twitter wars going on over the past week. But
they were an early investor in FTX, and it sold its stake last year. Yeah. And here's the kicker. It received a boatload of these FTT tokens, right? Mm-hmm. And then when the Coindesk document leaked over the weekend, Binance said they were dumping their stake of these tokens, $500 million worth. Yeah. And this is what was playing out on Twitter all weekend. That's when the snowball started. So over the next couple of days, Binance ended up making an offer to assist FTX with their liquidity issues, but they made a statement that they could back out after doing their due diligence. Well, yesterday, that was some quick due diligence, by the way. They backed out over the takeover bid, and the snowball continued. And, this whole thing just stinks. Question. Here's some questions I have.
Okay.
What happens to all the investments that FTX made this year?
Exactly.
Okay? We got the NBA stadium deals like the Miami Heat. And as of this morning, Miami comes out and says, we're doing whatever we can to protect that deal. And you will use whatever resources to go after this deal. It was, if I'm not mistaken, $165 million deal. So how about the $450 million stake in Yuga Labs? That's the founders of Bored Ape Yacht Club. Okay. And inside that deal, somebody's got a wallet with many of the Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, which are going for 70 ETH right now?
Right.
So who controls that? How about the BlockFi?
I was going to say BlockFi, because BlockFi, they extended that credit line to them.
Massive credit line to bail them out during the summer, right? How about Skybridge Capital and that 30% stake that they took in them?
Sure.
That was kind of questionable, in my opinion, anyways. I watched that interview when it was announced on CNBC. I'm not a fan of that.
When did the Skybridge Capital deal go through? Or was it
hasn't went through. If they did, they've already paid them the cash for it. But what happens to that stake? There's a 30% stake. So that's an asset of the company during liquidity issues.
Okay.
So they're going to sell that off. What about the 7.5% stake in Robinhood that they took this year? And I could just go on and on and on. And that's why Robinhood was down so much over the last 48 hours.
Okay, so here's the thing. You mentioned what happens to all the investments. These are your questions. What about the NBA, the Miami Heat stadium deal, BlockFi, Yoga Labs, you name it? What about the investors?
Yeah. Think about the investors, though, the hedge funds, billions.
So I should say real quick, the investors in FTX.
Yeah, in FTX itself first.
Yeah.
Let's do that before we hit customers and consumers. Okay. Billions in total revenue and investments that FTX has got in the last few years from SoftBank,
Right.
Tiger Global Management, other hedge funds. If I remember, there was a Toronto or Ontario pension fund had put a lot of investments into them. So,
okay. It's a mess. It's a mess. So I have a quick question for you, backing it up when we were talking about how this was happening and it snowballed. This was basically a bank run, so to speak, on FTX until they froze withdrawals, correct? Like that's what happened this week.
Yeah, more like everyone rushing to sell FTT once the news was out that the biggest holder, Binance, the whale, was selling. Anytime you hear that, Michelle,
they didn't
everyone's
just
going to
sell,
rush to the door.
Don't.
They don't want to be the last one holding whatever's left.
Right, right. Okay, so we talked about how, how this affects, the investors in FTX. Let's talk a little bit about, how this is going to affect the average consumer. I mean, it already has. Let's go there, right? We've seen what it's done in the crypto market.
Right.
Well, I'm just gonna leave it there. Let's talk about that, and I have more questions for you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and think about this: how it affects the average consumer. First of all, it really affects those that held FTT. Number one,
for sure.
Okay. First and foremost. Okay. Especially when you couldn't liquidate your assets from an exchange.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Which is why. Here comes my public service announcement. Brian knows this. This is the one thing that I harp on all the time. Do not keep your money, your crypto, on a crypto exchange.
And especially one that is overseas.
Right.
Number one.
Well, anyone, I would just say, but so that's my public service announcement for today. Continue.
And okay, so let's go back. Okay, so first and foremost, them guys. Okay. Second, what about the people that panicked and sold their crypto and Ethereum down to a little over $1,000 for Ethereum yesterday, and now it's at 1330, up 20% since yesterday. What if you panicked and sold? Same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin hit its yearly low yesterday, also back up again today.
Sure.
But I mean, people over panic and sell into the negativity. And my thought is let's sit back, take a pause back, and let's understand what happened. And unless you own them FTT shares, if you didn't sell anything else, you might be okay. So
okay. All right. So let's talk about how this is, first of all, so how this will affect stocks, the stock market, the market specifically, not crypto. We've already seen a few, let's talk short term and long term.
Okay.
How do you think it's going to affect it?
Well, we've seen it. We literally seen this play out this week. And and even though they say crypto doesn't track U.S. indexes, I truly believe that it and the NASDAQ 100 run side-by-side charts.
Sure.
Okay. So, and what we seen this week was a pullback, a slow pullback, 2-3 days. And then, but when it was announced that Binance was walking away from the deal to bail these guys out, it was an instant drop in the market. Sure. And it was like 10 minutes to the close, and instant drop. Okay. That's a problem that we're so intertwined like that. Okay. Yeah. And some other stocks, Coinbase being the biggest US based exchange, right?
Yeah. People started freaking because it's an exchange.
It was an exchange. So they think, oh my gosh, they do too. It might be the same issue there. So we got to sell it. Well, it was down, 17, 18%, something like that, in yesterday alone. But when they came out and put a statement out, hey, we have no exposure to FTX. leave us out of this ball game. Let them guys continue doing whatever they're doing. And now it's back up 13% today.
Right.
Okay. So Robinhood, who shares basically have collapsed on heavy volume, 66 million shares traded in a 48-hour period. Thinking FTX would have to sell their stake for liquidity. Well, they may have been selling into this. We don't know the true aspect of it yet. But when you drop a stock 45% in 48 hours, it might be a time to take the other side of that trade. I personally took the other side of the Coinbase trade.
Right.
I'm happy with it because I looked at 5 years from now. Do I think Coinbase is going to be higher than the $44 it was trading at? Where's it at today? 50, almost 52. I'm a happy camper today because of that. But that's how I look for things.
So,
and
Brian,
think about that too.
Real quick, we talked earlier about the investors in the reason I'm going to go back to this, the investors and the projects that FTX was either invested in, or the investors that were invested in FTX.
Sure.
Really, how heavily were they invested, some of these investment groups and hedge funds? And then the question is, what then happens in the general market? Like, what are they going to have to sell off? So I guess, I know, again, I've said this a million times on this show we have here. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what are the long-term effects or midterm effects to the stock market because of this?
Yeah, let's hit the short term real quick, because the negativity of, and some reporter threw it out there, could this be the Lehman Brothers moment in cryptocurrency? Everybody remember Lehman Brothers of 08, 09, right?
We do. Yes.
Okay. So there could be a lot of volatility from it. That kind of send it even lower, okay, and put more pressure on stocks, crypto, everything across the board. But again, remember, as a hedge fund and these big private placements into FTX ahead of time, these guys were doing their due diligence, and we're even some of the smartest people in the room.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. We're talking BlackRock. We're talking Kevin O'Leary. We're talking tons of them. Anyways, and don't forget the celebrities that endorsed this.
So Tom Brady,
his wife. I forget. There was
a bunch of them right now. I can't remember who it was.
It's like I'm looking at the chart. It's like, oh my gosh, look at all these people. But anyways, okay. Does that make them any smarter? No, it's an investment. And if they did their due diligence and put a percentage of their assets into it, it isn't going to affect them. And that's why I truly today, not only the reason because of the CPI numbers were phenomenal this morning, better than expected. I truly believe that the overreaction is done and we won't see that Lehman Brothers moment in the crypto space. Okay. And a great comment that I heard, and you say this all the time too, the exchanges weren't, what do I want to say, decentralized. Okay. But if you look at crypto itself, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, okay, they were separated from that. Okay. Sure. But it took down everything. So if you were an investor, it's like, oh my gosh, as long as you didn't sell, you were okay. And you step back and just pause for a moment, walk away, go for a walk, whatever. You do some even your real life stuff and then come back to it today. You're thinking, oh, I'm glad I didn't sell yesterday. Okay. We're not that far off from where we were a couple of days ago. I'm okay.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this do you think there's going to be a specific sector in the market that will be affected, like short-term, mid-term, even long-term from this? Or is it too early to say?
Still too early to say because behind the scenes, so like I said, with the NASDAQ, think of the NASDAQ for a minute.
Right.
It really tracks the crypto market. And one thing I did to protect myself was put some puts in.
Sure.
On the NASDAQ, just in case. Okay. It's just like buying car insurance so you don't get into an accident. Okay. I'm protecting.
Or you do get into an accident and you can cover the actual damage.
Right. And cover the damage. Yeah. So, same thing here. Okay. So it costs a little bit of money. Okay. It's a write-off. I bought insurance to protect my portfolio. It's okay. That's what we do. So, but short term, long term. The thing is, Michelle, let's watch the cards play out in this.
Sure.
My biggest concern is the investments that FTX made.
Right.
What happens to the deals that haven't closed yet?
Yeah.
Is there going to be a liquidity crunch? I even heard this morning that, Sam had bought, they're Bahama based. So they're in the Bahamas, and had bought a series of 15 condo units.
Oh.
$165 million in cash, and moved everyone from Hong Kong over to there.
Oh.
Was working with them. Well, guess what? Them assets, they don't think they could ever touch them assets. So them assets are protected. Just depends on how it was set up.
Right.
So, I mean, look, this thing's going to play out. And it's sad that it happened. It's sad that it happened in today's watch. And Sam was the one that was really pushing for big crypto regulation.
Yeah. And not in a good way.
And not in a good way. He wanted to really over-regulate. Well,
Sure.
if you over-regulate, well, guess what? You went against everything, according to what we're seeing today and what's coming out, you went against everything you was trying to regulate. So
exactly. And it's a shame that's happening today, just in
today's
general, but then also
happen.
in crypto, because this comes on the heels of Celsius, and it's just, and BlockFi and all of that. So,
and let alone the crypto downturn that we've had the last 12 months. So
for sure, which is rather exciting to me because I've been waiting for this since fall.
If your dollar cost averaging, you're doing fine.
Right. All right. Well, is there any other question I should have asked that I didn't about this?
Let's just go back to the beginning. The biggest question: can this bring down our entire stock market? I don't think so. I think there's enough separation between the two. Can it hurt some people that were over leveraged maybe in it?
Exactly.
Yes. But will we know truly what that effect is unless you can open up the books of some of these hedge funds and see how deep they were into this?
Yeah.
Probably not. So,
okay.
But if you bought into the crypto market and you used your due diligence and knew what your tolerance of risk was, like 5% of my holdings is crypto or something like that, or I would never go over 10% of my total portfolio in crypto. If that was you, you're okay. It pulled back a little bit, but if you were in one specific token, FTT, that was your issue. Some other ones that fell along with it were Solana fell hard,
super hard.
So, I mean, diversification is key there. So take this, if you were one of the ones that lost money during this, take this as a learning exercise to never put 100% of your assets into one item. Not saying that anyone did, but if you did, just learn from this. Learn from this.
Absolutely. And also don't leave your money on exchanges.
Definitely.
That's another one too. And my heart does go out to anybody who's lost big, because I do know a few people who've gotten really decimated in the Solana space. But you know what? We pick up and we move on, and you're right. We learn from it.
We do.
All right. On that note, Brian, any other parting words of wisdom before we wrap this up? That's it.
Be careful. Know your tolerance of risk.
Okay. If you like the content of this video, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Brian and I put out content almost every day now. And really, we're here to inform you on things that will help you make better financial decisions for your future. So hit that like button, help us grow the channel, and subscribe. All right. Thank you, everybody. And thanks, Brian.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.